Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of bluegrass. You've enjoyed live bluegrass at Guitar Town CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hull, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. So my guest today on Got Grass is Tony Furtado. Welcome, Tony.
Hey.
For those of you who can't see this, because it's an audio podcast, he's in his art studio doing some sculpting as we speak. So this will be more fun for me to watch than you can't see it. I can, but anyway, I'm just going to announce quickly that you are playing here at Guitar Town in Hamden on July 23rd, Thursday night, with your trio with Matt Flinner and Luke Price, which is cool. I don't usually get to have people on the podcast who are about to play here because I've been doing concerts a lot longer than podcasts. So most people on the podcast have either played here or they're never going to play here, one or the other. But so that's fun. So I hope people will come out and hear that show on a Thursday. It's a house concert, yard concert.
Mm-hmm.
So I always start out by asking my podcast guest on a day off, where would we find Tony Furtado?
Well, it depends on what that day off entails. If I'm at home, I don't know that I have days off because I try to squeeze in as much sculpting, or if I have some music to deal with, or my son is now 13, so he's getting a little more independent, but there's a lot to do there. But if I'm on the road and I have a day off, which is rare also because I don't like days off, I tend to be very persistent, as you now know, trying to fill in the gaps on days off. But, okay, that said, if I've got a chunk of a day, I like to go to a museum. I like to go to if there's a nice museum, or if I'm in some neck of the woods I've never been, or literally if there's a nice neck of the woods to see, I like to go for a nice hike or see whatever the cool thing in the neighborhood is,
Yeah, my wife and I's favorite pastime is going to a museum cafe and sitting there and watching the people and having tea and a crumpet. And that's my favorite. I just love to sit in a museum cafe.
Isn't that fun? I love it too. And our museum here in Portland, Oregon was recently refurbished quite a bit. And their museum cafe is awesome. I love it. Yeah. Best cup of coffee in town, which is really a tough sell because Portland is really known for coffee.
Right. I should also mention that your last name, Furtado, was a pretty unique name, but there are two other professional musicians that you share it with, unrelated, including a banjo player.
That's couple banjo odd. Players. Two.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, because there's Victor and his sister Gina are both amazing banjo players.
So that's like a 1 in a million coincidence that your name would be shared by other professional musicians. I mean, it's not a common name. I mean, if your name was like, I don't know, Smith or Jones or Rice, maybe.
If you head down to Brazil or the Azore Islands, it actually is a somewhat common Portuguese last name. It means stolen, and it's basically the same as I was recently told by a gentleman who came to one of my shows, a Spanish gentleman who said his last name was Hurtado, and it's comes from the same place.
Yeah. Are you watching the World Cup soccer?
I'm getting glimpses of it. I sure wish I could sit and have the patience to sit through a whole game. I grew up playing competitive soccer, so anytime there's a game on TV, I love to just sit and watch whoever. It doesn't matter who's playing. I could sit and watch it. My kid is really into soccer too, so it's a game I love. Yeah.
So aside from music, what are your main memories from growing up? Where did you grow up, by the way? California?
I grew up in California, in a town called Pleasanton. Born in Oakland, both my folks. It's interesting. My mom's side of the family is from right where you're at, basically. Well, New Haven. She all the Italians, because half of her family was from Sicily, and they ended up right there in that area in Connecticut.
Hmm.
And her other half, her father's side, was from Baltimore. They all landed in Baltimore hundreds of years ago. And but I grew up in Pleasanton, and it's basically like, it's a suburb in the Bay Area, East Bay.
Yeah, yeah. So that's funny. My wife's maiden name is Baltimore. What was the last Sicilian last name when they came over? Are there a couple of different
Yeah.
ones in New
No,
Haven?
the only one I know of is Buemi.
UME.
And I'm loaded with stories here today. I One interesting thing about the Buemis is my grandmother's brother was named Joseph Anthony Buemi, and they called him Tony. And it just so happens he played banjo and slide guitar and mandolin, and but passed away young at the age of 19 or 20, back in around 1920. And I didn't know about him until after I started playing banjo and slide guitar. So when my grandma saw that I was doing that, and then also kind of going along the lines of, there was something I did like when I was 19 or 20. I remember started trying out vegetarianism when I was that age. And he had a eating disorder and started whittling down his diet. So she would come up to me and she said, Tony, manja, you got to eat. Because then she told me about the story about him, and I was like, whoa, are you kidding me? They called him Tony. He plays slide guitar and banjo too. It's really strange.
So you're following in the footsteps of someone you never knew in a
Exactly. In
way.
fact, there's a picture of him playing a brown acoustic guitar that looks very much like my guitar, and I remember seeing that picture, and it was really kind of eerie. So we ended up putting it on the inside of the album notes of my album called Roll My Blues Away.
Hmm. So are your family members, any of them still around New Haven? Because Hamden is like 3 miles from New Haven. So New Haven is, known as the pizza capital of the world now.
Yeah.
Self-named, probably true. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
Sicilians around New Haven.
I'm definitely expecting to see a few of them show up at the show. So that'll be nice.
Oh, good, good,
Yeah.
good.
Last
So
time I played in town, they came out too. I played at a little, I seem to recall it was like a daytime gig in a little pub or something, a little bar.
yeah. So was your immediate family musical growing up? Was your dad or mom bluegrassy or banjo-y or
No,
anything?
that would be a big no to that. I discovered it myself. I remember in sixth grade, we were asked to make a musical instrument out of household items and do a report on that instrument. And at the time, I was really into making things with my hands. So I came up with a thing in my head. Okay, I'll take a pie tin, stretch some paper on it, put a stick on there, rubber bands for frets, and nylon fishing string. And I was thinking, is that a violin? No, 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 no. I've seen banjos before. That's a banjo. So it's kind of like, a little discovery. So I did the report on the banjo and found out it came from Africa and had this really rich history of a lot of different types of music. And I also remember every other weekend going over to my grandparents' house in Livermore, California. They were kind of country folks, Portuguese, but country folks. They always had Hee Haw or the Beverly Hillbillies on the TV. So I saw my fair share of banjo on TV. And I just kind of fell in love with it. I thought it was really interesting and different. And when I turned 12, I got a real banjo and practiced a whole bunch.
When you speak, you sound, and I know this is not coincidence, but you sound so much like Rob Ickes when you talk. You have vocal mannerisms just like Rob when you just told me that story. And I know that you and Rob Ickes grew up kind of together or
Yeah,
kind of.
I mean, we grew up across the bay from each other. We're about the same age, and we used to get together and jam when we were teenagers, and we're in a band together called Heartland for about 6 months in the 80s. And then he left the band and went to school to study veterinary medicine. And I I left the band to join Laurie Lewis's band and start touring and recording. And, went our separate ways, but have always been in touch here and there and played a little bit here and there on each other, each
Just so
other's
funny,
things.
your inflection. Just if I close my eyes, I would have thought I was talking to Rob. Rob's played
That's
here
so
a lot
funny.
over the years, many times with various different bands. But something, it's just that maybe it's that certain accent. I don't know.
It must be the accent. I've never been told that. That's so funny.
Yeah, yeah. So, I know you went into a lot of banjo contests when you were younger. Was that like by choice, or was somebody pushing you to be? Or you competitive? You wanted to be the best banjo player recognized.
To be honest, I only entered 2. It was the national contest. I won it both times, but that was mainly. I had been, in fact, you mentioned Rob. We used to hang out at fiddle contests and jam a bunch with fiddle players and whoever was around. And I just remember seeing people go up and play a few fiddle tunes and win a prize. I'm like, you know what? I was practicing probably 8 hours a day back then. And I remember thinking to myself, well, why don't I just practice a whole bunch and enter one of these contests? And at the time also I was running into Mike Bubb here and there, bass player who played with just about everybody. Wonderful guy. He was in a band called the Weary Hearts, and I remember him kind of nudging me and saying, you should enter the national banjo competition. And I thought, well, okay, why not? I'll give it a shot. I'm not necessarily, of course, there's a competitive streak in me. I want to be the best I can, and I like to be on stage and play my music. There's definitely that ego part of me, but I did not expect to win, and I didn't. It was almost more like a challenge to myself, just to get my stuff together, come up with some versions of tunes that were interesting and exciting, and impressive. And go fly, which I had never done before, fly to another place, which is Kansas, and enter the contest and just kind of meet some people and have fun with it. And so when I got there and me and Mike Bubb were practicing the tunes, he was like, see all these banjo players around? They're checking you out. Because I did notice that. They were kind of walking around and looking at me and listening to my playing. I was like, oh, checking me out? What? I'm just a kid playing the banjo. And then when the contest started, I remember it was 26 folks entered, and they were all I was really impressed with everyone's playing, and when it whittled down to the 5 players that were the finalists, I was in that batch, I was like, oh my gosh, I might have a chance at this, or at least, 3rd place or something. And my folks came with me too. It was my first flight ever. I'm really rambling this story. Sorry about that.
No, that's why you're on the podcast. I like hearing the stories.
I've never actually told this particular story before.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, if I want to double back and say that as my high school graduation present, part of it was to fly me to Kansas with them and have it be a trip. And so my folks got a chance to get a good dose of that kind of, bluegrass festival and contests and me jamming with other people, because they didn't really come to a lot of the things that I was doing at the time. And then when I won, I could see the pride in my dad's eyes, and that was kind of worth the whole thing, because he wasn't a musician at all, and he didn't really relate to what I was doing with that stuff. But then when he saw me win that, and we had to come home with the trophy and the new banjo, he was like very protective of those things when we got on the plane. It was pretty special.
It's a nice story.
Uh-huh.
So if you were practicing 8 hours a day banjo, that doesn't leave much aside from eating, sleeping, and banjo. There's not much time left. So you must have been kind of obsessed with the banjo.
I was obsessed with the banjo and music and getting better, and I wanted to be the best I could possibly be on the instrument and discover things. Of course, the guy that was getting famous at that point was Bela Fleck. He was, I remember he is 10 years older than me, and had this amazing output of stuff that I could check out. But that just kind of sent me down these other pathways of checking out like bebop and Charlie Parker. And I remember sitting down, working out note for note solos and as well as Irish music, note for note solos with that stuff. And I had a regimen of scale study and Scruggs style study, and then a couple hours of, transcribing. And it wasn't torture, it was fun. It was my escape. And I just loved diving deep into it. And, even though I was sculpting a lot too back then as a kid, and I was fully planning on being a sculptor, and I was going to be a fine arts major, basically, I still had the dream of being on stage and playing music, possibly for a living. And, I think once that got going, the practice kind of backed off a bit, obviously. And, yeah.
It's funny. I had Tony Trishka on the podcast a while back, and we were talking about his banjo career, and he said, "Yeah, I taught banjo for a while. I gave Bella Fleck one lesson, and I said, Bella, that's all I can really teach you." He was just a kid, But he said, "That's about as much as I can show you. Sounds like you're moving ahead of me."
Yeah. I mean, that guy is just so beyond everything. It's incredible. I mean, done more for the instrument than I could ever even imagine. And for me, my exploration and interest in the instrument was perhaps a little different. I like working out the puzzles of things and coming up with little tunes that are inspired by the puzzles or inspired by the other types of music that I hear. But then I kind of like to move on and try something else, which led me on to studying slide guitar, listening to a bunch of Ry Cooder. But then I wanted to write songs and sing, and that sent me down other rabbit holes, so it's... After a while, it all becomes this soup that is you. You like this, you like that, and the other, and you hope that you come up with something that's original and your own.
Yeah, there's a young banjo player in North Carolina named Ettore Buzzini. I don't know if you heard of him, but he's I don't know how old is he? He's 19 years old or something. But he has a similar approach. He's trying to take the banjo to places where most players wouldn't take it. He's been playing with the Traveling McCourys. They've been doing this whole Young Guns tour where they bring in all these local young musicians to play with them on tours. They've brought in like 20 or 25 different young local people that they meet at the venue, and
wow, that's pretty cool.
Bring them on stage and they play with the McCourys, and he was one of them. Interesting.
For those guys.
Guy.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah. I'll have to check him out.
Yeah. So I guess you played with Laurie Lewis. She's also a California musician still, right? Is she still out there?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, she's right there in Berkeley, born and bred. And, that's her thing. I just saw her recently when I played at the Berkeley Bluegrass Festival.
Yeah.
Good to see them.
So you're playing bluegrass, you're playing banjo, you're sculpting, you have a lot of musical interests, but at some point you kind of decided or veered or went into a different direction with slightly, you said Ry Cooder, slide guitar, blues, kind of old, that kind of style of music as well. Did that just happen like out of the blue? You heard a record and say, whoa, I like that. Or have you always been playing that kind of stuff too?
I guess in a way it was out of the blue, but it was also kind of, I think it was bubbling up in me. I remember when I was a little kid hearing FM radio, unformatted FM radio, and hearing all kinds of stuff. But I always remembered hearing slide guitar. It's like, and then I also remember seeing Leo Kottke on some of those old rock shows on TV, and just saying, "Man, that's cool," And it's just the way his presence with that acoustic guitar. And then also sitting knee to knee with Rob Ickes, hearing him play the dobro. It's like something about the slide connected with me inside. And years later, I started a band called Sugar Beat with some other players, Matt Flinner, who's going to be with me at your show there. Matt Flinner, Sally Truitt, and Ben Demarath, who's a singer-songwriter from Amherst. And I remember when we were looking at songs to do, one of the tapes that got passed around was Tamp 'Em Up Solid from Paradise and Lunch, Ry Cooder. And something struck me. I was like, this guy, this music, this kind of encompassing of Americana, root stuff. And then when I heard him playing slide guitar, that was it. I was like, the bug kind of hit me hard. And I started going down rabbit holes. I borrowed Laurie Lewis's little acoustic Yamaha guitar, and I had some time off the road. It was right when Sugar Beat broke up. I decided I needed a change. So I borrowed her Yamaha. I grabbed every Ry Cooder album I could, started learning tunes from that, started working out scales with the slide, started checking out Blind Willie Johnson and all these other players. And my approach was different because obviously I grew up playing banjo, so I was finger picking everything. And then I also heard guys like David Lindley, lap style, but still he actually grew up playing banjo too. So there was something that was akin, and so I listened a bunch to that too. So I think at that point it kind of became organic. One thing would beget the next thing. It was like I would listen to this player, then that player, then the next player, and then I'd want to play Irish tunes on slide guitar, and then bluegrass tunes on slide guitar. It just kind of became my own personal stew.
Yeah. I remember listening to Fred McDowell, Mississippi Fred McDowell, with my brother and friends. We had his album called "I Do Not Play No Rock and Roll."
Yeah.
We just thought that was the coolest thing ever, and we memorized the entire spoken intro to every song, the way he talked. We would just do it. We would do it among ourselves, like these, white kids from Connecticut being this Mississippi black blues player, and just with the accent and everything. It was crazy.
Oh yeah.
And I still remember all that, the whole thing.
That's some of the best stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny because I love slide guitar. I loved Lowell George and Duane Allman. I never, ever was into Ry Cooder. I would listen to it, but if you asked me to name 3 Ry Cooder songs, I couldn't do it. It's weird. I don't know why. I never made that connection like you did.
I think for me, the connection was the messiness of it. I think some people might have been put off by, oh, he's just trying to sound like an old black blues musician. But I think that there's something more there, for me there is anyway. And the more there was like when you listen to Jim Keltner's drumming on that stuff, it's kind of messy, but it's still groovy as heck. It's just, there's some kind of ambiance that's created with all that.
Yeah. So you have it seems like a very thoughtful and kind of almost analytical approach to music. Like you want to know all about it and all the different aspects of it and where to go with it. Is that just your personality? You just like to get into things and follow them? Yeah,
I like to drill down a bit with things and then find my place with it, or find a way that I can have it be part of what I do. I mean, the bottom line is you want to be playing something that's soulful, something that's from deep down. You want to take all that stuff in and forget that you learned it. For me, that's what it was with what little I learned with jazz. It's like you want to take it in, understand the technicalities, understand the rules, but then when you're actually playing, you don't want to think about it. You want to think, okay, I learned this lick and I want to play it right here. And I learned that little piece of knowledge. I'm going to put that here. That has to wash away. That's why I think David Lindley for me was like that a bit. Like he was a sponge, but when he was on stage doing his thing, that's just pure him, I feel that way with Taj Mahal too, It was like all these things that were in his stew pot, but you listen to his show and it's just Taj.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Taj. I used to go see him all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about. So I know you play I guess they call it the cello banjo, that big banjo.
Yeah.
So back in the day, I'm talking about early 1900s, I know there were mandolin orchestras with a mandolin, mandocello, mandola, bass mandolin. Was that true also of banjo? There are like groups with just all the different size
That's what I
banjos playing?
hear. That's what I hear. I'm not an aficionado of that at all, but I hear that there were banjo bands and the cello banjo was just part of it. And then it kind of went away until a more recent resurgence by Gold Tone to start making them,
Ah.
and I remember when they started making them, they were kind of handing them out like candy to different players. And they offered me one at one point, but I just didn't, I don't like to accept instruments like that unless I know I'm going to use it. And I didn't have a place for it in my brain. So I let it go. But then a fan of mine, told me that she wanted to give me one because she bought one to learn how to play banjo on. I was like, you don't learn to play banjo on a cello banjo. So she just gave it to me, and it sat here in this studio for a while until I decided to pick it up and tune it in a particular way that worked for me. And tunes just started coming out. I was like, okay, this is cool. I dig it.
Going to ask you, so when you pick up that big banjo, it just wants to be played a certain way. It just like you just go with what the banjo is kind of telling you in a way.
I do because I don't pick it up and do Scruggs style banjo. I don't do bluegrass banjo on it. I do kind of my own strange tuning and my own kind of finger picking patterns. And at this point, I pick up that banjo and it's like another instrument for me. And it's funny because I also have a baritone ukulele that I tune the exact same way. And just the nylon stringiness of it, sounds really nice. And I approach it the same way I do the cello banjo.
I've seen Tim O'Brien play that cello banjo on occasion. Not too many other people that I know.
I'm guessing he's probably got the 4-string version of it, but yes.
Well, maybe, yeah. I didn't even count.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, double back on something here about the Ry Cooder thing. I think about that, and there is a significant portion of his stuff that I never really got into. And I think it's more like when he was trying to do a jazz thing, or he was doing more of a electric blues thing with a full band and putting on the light. That's not what, like, the stuff that I was specifically taken by was like albums called Boomer's Story and Paradise and Lunch, where it was a little more chaos, involved in what I was hearing. Because I was coming from the bluegrass background where, I wasn't a traditional bluegrass banjo player. Like, I could do that. I could do the straight up banjo picking that was straight up traditional, but that's not what I was choosing. I was doing more progressive stuff, progressive techniques, and trying to do other songs. But there was definitely, things were in their place and things were sound. I wanted the notes to be just right. But then when I heard those albums, there was something different, something messy, and I didn't have that yet. I had to learn that the messiness is okay, and now I value that. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's interesting because you mentioned Jim Keltner's drumming, and you mentioned messy, and you just mentioned the word again. And I feel the same way that sometimes music has to be a little messy to be real. I find,
Yes.
and I don't know how you feel about it, but so I listen to a lot of bluegrass and done a lot of concerts here we've presented, and I find the kind of clinical, technical aspect of bluegrass on a lot of bands today, it's definitely not messy, but it definitely sometimes just is not very soulful, or I don't know, it just seems a little too good.
Yeah. I totally hear you. That's exactly. There's times when I'm recording tunes nowadays too, where if it gets to that point where it's just clinical sounding and it just sounds like it's too, precise, then I get a little bummed out and like it's really missing life. It's really missing, it's got to breathe more, or it's got to just have more spur of the moment. And it's not even about playing bad notes, it's more about just being less AI with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I see it. I see that too with a lot of the young musicians who are so good, but just I don't know. They're also often not very entertaining on stage. They kind of turn their backs and tune and play to each other almost as
Yeah,
much as they play to the audience. They don't tell jokes. They don't goof around. They're just I don't know. It's one of my pet
it's
peeves.
too.
Anyway,
I hear you. I hear you.
yeah. So I was going to get into a little bit about your sculpting because I know you started out saying you're going to be doing some sculpting during the podcast, and
Yeah,
you said you've been doing sculpting since you were young. I mean, a
yeah,
long time. Yeah.
yeah.
So that was just something that always interested you. Were you inspired by Rodin or something or somebody
Oh, I
that
definitely
really?
loved Rodin when I was a kid, but I
Yeah.
was always. I think what started it was first I did a lot of drawing when I was um 8, 9, 10, 11, that age. I loved, and I got more and more into it where I would go up to the local hobby shop and buy oil paints. And I didn't know what you did with oil paints. I just slathered on these little canvases I would buy. I didn't know what I was doing. But there was something about the working with my hands. I needed to do it. I made balsa wood airplanes. Like my dad taught me how to do that, and I loved going off grid, just like not using the kit. I would buy all the balsa wood and the paper and the dope and stuff to put it on and stretch the paper and just make these crazy contraption planes. And then in 6th grade, once again, we had ceramics. Maybe it was 7th grade. And I had a very charismatic ceramics teacher that he was funny too. And from the second I got my hands in the clay, I was in love with it. It was like this was something I could do, and I would I immediately started just making everything. In fact, I remember in high school I made Rob Ikes he wanted a dobro playing dragon, so I made him. I hope he still has it. But I was making commission work for the kids in school and my family and the principal. It's just. I took to it. And by the time I was in high school, I was in that ceramics room as much as I possibly could be during the day, during school. And then when I get home, I'd practice my banjo. And so when it came time to choose a college, I remember my ceramics teacher and my counselor saying you gotta apply for a scholarship, and I was like, it was too limiting because I was dreaming of like being a professional musician, and if I got a scholarship to an art school, well, that meant I was definitely going to be an artist. And I just didn't do it. I ended up going to the local Cal State University, which was Hayward, and little did I know, one of the most famous ceramic artists at the time was teaching there. And when I found that out, I was like, oh, maybe I should take from him. But he was doing night classes, and night classes meant, oh, I can't play gigs at night if it's like, so I never took from him. And I ended up quitting school early and hitting the road with Laurie's band.
Yeah.
That's the short story.
Yeah. So I know you sculpt a lot of small kind of animal-like figures. Is that kind of
That's some of it. There's some pretty wacky stuff in here, I got to tell you. It's like my brain explodes a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see any of it, but it's like,
oh yeah. 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 So you're not limited to meerkats or anything like that. Oh, I can see. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of abstract, surreal, weird stuff that it's not the stuff that sells, but it's the stuff that definitely makes it into a lot of group shows in some of the galleries in this region. The stuff that really sells is like, okay, I'm gonna make a buffalo. Here you go. And then someone wants a buffalo, or someone wants a spotted owl, life-size spotted owl. I'll make that. Sold a couple of those,
Nice. Yeah.
But my heart is in like when it's similar to playing music for me. My heart is in the stuff where I get to just kind of follow my nature, follow my whatever, wherever the piece lets me go, or wherever the tune. Like if I'm writing a tune, I don't have to think I'm making a a bluegrass tune. I'm just making a tune. I'm making something
Mm-hmm.
that sounds nice to me. But like right here, I do tiles, and this is a new one
Oh,
I'm carving out.
like it.
It's going to
Yeah.
be, people have been telling me they want a a fox, so I'm making a fox tile, and I've got about 12 other tiles up there, so you'll see them at the show. That'll be in fact, I might even send a batch to you for the show.
That would be cool. I'd
So
love that.
yeah.
So do you think that I know I'm someone that has very crazy, weird dreams that I often remember and try and tell my wife, and she has no interest. But do you think music and or sculpture kind of is a way of expressing something like a dream would, like something inside of you that you don't really know what it is, or do you just feel like it's just a craft?
Oh no, absolutely. It's something inside that art in general, music, art, visual art. It's for me. I mean, for some people, sure, it's a craft and it's like just regurgitating what you learned. And that's the boring stuff. That's the boring music. That's the boring sculpture where it's, I definitely get very bored if I'm looking at sculpture that just looks like, okay, they made this sculpture of this person at this time, and here's what they looked like exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Or here's a bluegrass song that sounds exactly, this band is playing it exactly the way Lester and Earl played it, in the 50s. Okay. Or a blues band, the blues band doing exactly the way Muddy Waters, exactly the way that sound was, and that particular night, we'll play that version of it. That's boring to me. But when you take chances and just kind of go for it and see what happens, get rid of all those rules and what things are supposed to look like or sound like. I think that's where the interesting stuff lies.
Yeah. I think it might have been John Coltrane, or someone was asking him in an interview, how do you learn to play like that? And he says, well, you practice for 5 years and then you forget everything you learned and go play. Something like that. It wasn't exactly what it was, but it was like basically like you were saying, you internalize all this stuff and then you just go for it without trying to recreate what you just memorized or something.
Exactly. And it's the same with visual art too. You don't want to have to be so tied to rules and that you lose touch with the soul of something or a feeling or something emotional. I remember when I wrote songs for my album that's called The Bell. My father had passed away and my son had just been born. They never met each other. But the songs that were coming out. Oh, and another emotional thing that happened was I parted ways with someone who was my manager, my label, and my publisher. All three things, and it was like this big change. I decided to go completely independent for the first time ever. And so all this stuff, it's like all these emotions, I didn't know what to do with it. And that was the first time I really sat down and just, without saying, oh, I'm going to make an album. It was like, let me get this stuff out of me. I'm not going to try to write a song about this. I'm not going to try to write a song in this way. It's like, let me just get this out. And so songs just started kind of coming right out. They were oozing out. And those are probably the strongest songs I've ever written, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening on YouTube. I was doing my due diligence on some of your music and stuff, and I heard a version of a song that you did a long time ago, the Beatles song "I Will," with Alison Krauss, who at the time I think was just like 20, 21. She was pretty young at the time, and she kind of I guess sang the melody, and you figured out a nice harmony to sing with her.
No, I didn't sing it. That was Mooney Klein.
Oh, that was Mooney Klein. I was going to congratulate you on that harmony because I was going to say how easy or hard is it to sing harmony below Allison and not sound like you're trying to sing harmony?
I was not singing back then.
Okay.
But I remember. If you want the story, here's the story of how that happened. I remember at the time, I can't remember if I heard her sing it first I might have heard, or if I heard the Maura O'Connell version of it that Bela produced, but Bela didn't play banjo on it. But I thought the tune was so pretty, and then I, of course, got deeper in on the Beatles original version of it. And I thought it would make a really nice banjo solo piece. So this one day I was at the DMV and I had a bit of a wait. So I went out to my car, I grabbed my number and I went out to the car, pulled the banjo out and just started messing around with it. And I put the banjo in double C tuning and started plinking out the melody, put the bass line in the bottom and just started working it out. And it felt really good. So after a while, I came up with a solo banjo piece, that I was going to record. And I remember running into Alison at, I don't know, one of the times she came to the Bay Area when we crossed paths at a festival or something. And I said, hey, I'm going to record that as a banjo solo piece. And she said, well, you ought to get me to sing it on your album. And I was like, okay. This is before anyone really, it was before she got really famous. So that was doable. And so we recorded the music. That album was partially produced by Mike Marshall. And so we went into a studio in San Francisco and recorded the music for it. Rob Ickes was on it. Todd Phillips, more than likely. Steel pan player, I can't remember his name. And then I took the tape. I had just moved to Virginia too, to the DC area because I left Laurie Lewis's band, and Alison had just moved to Nashville, and I just got to know Mundi Klein in DC too. Mundi and I hopped in a car, and we were actually thinking about starting Sugar Beat together, but that didn't work out. So anyway, Mundi and I drove to Nashville, went to to Rick Adler's studio, and Alison came down, put down the vocal for it, and Mundi put down the harmony. And it was interesting watching her work because I don't know if it's her same process. I'm sure she's got a different process now because she was just a teenager then. But I remember, she sang it piece by piece, piece by piece, let's do this, let's do this, let's just. Then after a few hours, she said, okay, let me just give the whole thing a shot. Went back, sang it through, and I think that was the one we mostly used, and she kind of fixed that one. So she just had to get her voice to warm up and really feel the piece. And then so it came out on my album that was called Within Reach. And it did pretty good on the bluegrass charts. And then a couple years later, Ken Irwin from Rounder Records mentioned that they were going to be making a compilation album of songs that she sang on other people's albums and just kind of pluck them. And since we were both on Rounder, that was an easy thing, and so they were going to take I Will from mine and put it on this album. Of course, there were the technical things of, things that had to be agreed to that he was kind of not talking to me about. And I didn't have a manager at the time. And I was like, okaying everything. I was like, wait a minute, shouldn't I be talking to a lawyer about this? So there was a lot of stuff that had to be worked out. But that went on her album, which ended up going double platinum pretty quickly. So it was pretty cool and a pretty big honor to be part of that.
Yeah. I know when she was a little before that, she was playing quite a bit with Tony Rice, and she was just what I would have called a shy teenager. I'm kind of surprised she would have said to you, "Let me sing this on your album," because I wouldn't have thought she was so. I would have thought she was less self-confident, I guess, at that point about her singing.
Yeah, I wouldn't have called her a shy teenager back then. She was, she influenced me. I remember when we'd chat on the phone, she was always talking about, so-and-so's a badass and you got to check out this. You got to check out that early Ralph Stanley and this and that. It had an impact on me. I was like, oh my God, she definitely knows what she's talking about. Let me go work on this, And it was helpful. It was like she gave me some ideas of what to study to make my right hand stronger, to make my bluegrass feel better,
That's very interesting because, I mean, as a layperson, a music fan, my image of her is someone who's very, I wouldn't say withdrawn, but keeps to herself and is not the kind of person that would offer anybody advice. I don't know. It's just, I guess her public persona and her music reality are maybe very different.
She may be different now too. I haven't seen her in decades. So
yeah, I was wondering if you ever stayed in touch or even played together again, or was that just a
no,
one time?
that would be awesome. But
Yeah.
everyone has their, as we get older too, we get very comfortable with what we do, and you want to kind of keep that same circle, that same feeling of comfort. Like I do that with I love getting out there with Luke Price, who plays fiddle with me. He's more than just a fiddle player. He's a really good producer. He's an amazing guitarist and singer, and he and his wife have this band called Love Dean that's very much, it's like original music, but it's very much like vintage soul, indie vintage soul, and just gorgeous stuff. So I value his presence. He gets what I do. We've played together for 15 years now, and it's like hand in glove to me, and it's very comforting when I know he's going to be there on my gig.
Yeah, yeah. When you're sitting around at home thinking about music, what instrument do you usually pick up, or does it depend on what's on the couch?
Yeah, pretty much what's sitting around, I don't right now, but I usually have one of my old Martin guitars in my studio here, or a banjo, but nothing right now. The basement though, it's funny, my kid Liam is now 13. My wife is an amazing singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist. Her name's Stephanie Schneiderman, and she and I haven't push hardcore music on our kid, but he's definitely discovering what he wants to do and loves, and it happens to be jazz piano. So now he's got the basement of our very small house kind of overtaken, and he's got a keyboard next to the piano, and he's going down there more and more and disappearing into his jazz world, which I love that. But I'm finding my instruments are kind of getting scooted over here, put in the closet. I'm like, hey, about me.
It's funny. I do I grew up, my mom played classical and jazz piano, stride piano, and
oh, nice.
I grew up listening to, first like Benny Goodman, and then I got into in my late teens kind of avant-garde jazz, Ornette Coleman, Cecil Taylor,
Sure.
Art Ensemble, all that kind of stuff. And
nice.
I went down that rabbit hole. My friends thought I was nuts. They called it nightmare music, and they said they just couldn't get it. And I would listen to it for hours on end, and I don't know why. So I get that. I get the jazz rabbit hole. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had that too with jazz. Like, what's interesting to me is Liam has been discovering players that I discovered when I was a little bit older than him. But there's this one Cannonball Adderley tune called Cannonball, which, I mean, it's not super obscure, but most jazz players I've mentioned it to are like, never heard that one. But it's also kind of banjo-y in a way. And so I worked it out on the banjo and put it aside. It's like all my transcriptions of Cannonball and Charlie Parker and Charlie Christian, Benny Goodman, all that stuff. I listened to that too. Mm-hmm. So it was all tucked away. And then this one day I hear him working on this tune that sounded familiar, like he's trying to transcribe it, work it out. It was Cannonball. I was like, I know that tune. Wait a minute.
That's funny. I don't know that one either, and I love Cannonball. I don't know the song either.
Oh, check it out. It's really cool. It's I could definitely see recording that someday, and doing it on the banjo.
We had a concert here. I forget. It might have been Jeff Picker, the bass player, had a band, and he had Eddie Barbash on saxophone playing.
Oh, cool.
But they were doing bluegrass. So Eddie was playing like red-haired boy at a huge fast tempo on the saxophone, which I thought was kind of impressive to even attempt.
Yeah, I know Luke Price, the guy that plays with me, recently hired Eddie for something, and that was my first time really hearing him. It's like amazing player.
Yeah. So was there ever a time in your life when you thought about getting out of music and being just an artist, or some other thing, or
Yeah,
we
now.
now? Good time.
I mean, I can't see ever not getting on stage and playing music. That's just I it's like it's my home. You know, I get on stage and I feel comfortable and I feel happy and I'm playing music. I love it. What I don't like is all the travel, and lately what I don't like is the stress that is more and more um confining. You know, it's hard. It's becoming even harder to make a living doing music. And it's only partly because we've lost the ability to make money from recorded music. And that really is a big giant loss right now. And people are reeling and trying to figure it out, trying to get people to, you know, it sounds like we're begging. It sounds like we're passing the hat, and it's like we're just, when we ask people to fund the making of the albums, that has to come from somewhere, and it does not come from labels. Now, it does not come from people purchasing CDs or even buying downloads. That's becoming rarer and rarer to make enough money to do that. So we have to go to the crowd to say, we need your funding to make this album. We're not kidding anymore. And now it's even becoming more and more difficult to get concerts that pay enough because of inflation with everything. So trying to make enough money to a living wage to have 3-4 people on the road, even just one, even just me when I go out solo. It's becoming more difficult. So yeah, ticket prices have to go up. That's why I'm trying to push. I have to. You know, you see these concerts that are hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get to see Bruce Springsteen or anyone with a giant name. So you're finding more people are, sorry, this is such a rampage. I'm so sorry to ramble on this, but
Go for it.
It's in my heart.
Go for it.
When you know, people are more and more saving up their pennies, saving up their entertainment fund to go see this one big show or a couple. Well, that's making them not feel comfortable with going out and paying $35-$40 to go see Matt Flynn or Tony Furtado and Luke Price. You know what I mean? It's like they find less of a budget because these other big shows are becoming more exponentially more and more expensive because all the people that got to take a piece of that pie. It's not even just because the headliner needs more money. So that means that our shows have to go up a little bit more. We have to make a little more at those live shows, and it's funny because I think maybe sometimes people are more not offended, but more noticing when people of my level or, you know, mid-level artists, when our tickets go up by $5, it's like, whoa, really? It's going to be that much? I don't know if we could do that. I run into that a lot, you know, where there's some house concerts that I'll do, or even venue concerts where they don't feel like they can charge more than $20 a head and get people to come in the door. But the audience needs to learn. It's got to be more, because that's what we were asking people 20 years ago. You know, it has to be raised.
I think bluegrass, as an example, is almost shot itself in the foot by keeping this general impression that bluegrass concerts should be $20.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even go see a freaking movie and get a soda for $20.
No.
You're gonna go for a beautiful 2-hour concert of live music for the same. And I think you're right. People have been kind of taught, brainwashed to feel like, yeah, you can, because my daughter, I have 3 daughters. My middle daughter is 26, so she'll spend $500 to see, you know, whoever, but she'll only go to one concert a year.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's like
and they don't go out regularly to see like small venue performers. They only want to go see the big name, Bruce, the Stones, Billie Eilish, Taylor Swift, $1,000 a concert. But you're right. and I found it since COVID too. I think the small concert venue like we are has really been hurting with attendance. I mean, I would
Mm-hmm.
say it's down 30% at least since COVID as a general rule on all the
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
And I mean, I appreciate what bands have to go through to try to get anywhere and play. I'm kind of amazed that so many bands still try to do it because, as you say, it's living wage. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
That's why I sell these things at my shows now, because, I'll sell these tiles for $40. I'll bring 20, 25 tiles, and the goal is to sell them in a few days. And a lot of times that happens, and that helps make up for what I don't sell with CDs, or what I don't make on the back end of a gig,
Yeah, I don't think most fans have any idea of how close to the margins most musicians are living. These young bands that travel in vans and drive around and make, $400 for a show with a four-piece band. They're not
Oh,
even, they're losing money.
no, I'll tell you what, my wife and I laugh sometimes. I don't know, this might be TMI, but we, you know, we're both musicians. She has this new venture she's got going that's she calls it You Are the Song, where she's been this is all to tell you one thing, where she gets a group of people. Like, first she was just doing people that would pay for the experience. She would get like 5 different people to come on a weekly basis, once a week, and and learn how to write a song. It's not even learn how to write a song. It's write a song. Like, she brings them through the process of what she calls gut to lyric, songwriting, where there's journaling, there's pulling out nuggets from it, there's listening to the speech and finding melody in the speech, because these are people that have never sung or played an instrument, that are learning that are going to write a song with her help and record it in a nice studio and then perform it. So she's taken it from that to bringing it to a woman's prison, and with other songwriters with her. She's brought it to a school for kids with addiction, and it's therapy. It's become like she's starting a nonprofit with it, and like building it up. But eventually she's going to get paid to do this. But for now, it's like, it's this, she has faith. I have faith in it. It's like amazing to see, but it takes a while to get it to where it's really earning her money. So it's the same with me and my sculpting business. I've only become more of a serious sculptor over the past, I got back into it 20 years ago, but have really been ramping up over the past 5 years. So we live on the edge, financially. And sometimes we think to ourselves, boy, some of our friends, if they lived on the same edge as us, they would be freaking out. Most people would be. But we know we're going to be okay, and we always are, because we're very resourceful, and we make it. But it shouldn't have to be that tight. Yeah. It shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. I think a lot of people.
That was a lot to say. Sorry about that.
People have no idea. I think they see a band come in. Yeah, why are tickets $40? They just drive here, they play, and they go home. They play for 2 hours, and why they're getting a lot of money per hour. They have no idea that it's a whole day. You're paying for a whole day of a band, not just an hour and a half. Anyway, I always ask this question of people. In the history of music, is there anybody that you would have liked to sat down and played with on the couch for a couple hours?
I would say it's someone who I have played. There's several of them. John Hartford was a friend and a wonderful musician. And I would love to go back and do exactly that. I mean, I played with him a couple times backstage, or on stage with other people. But I would have really enjoyed just sitting down and, shooting the shit and hanging out and playing some tunes and, get more into his inner workings. Same with David Lindley. I got to play on stage with him a number of times and got to know him, but to actually get to just in a relaxed fashion in a living room, just hang out, play tunes for a few hours, man, that's it right there. I mean, those guys, I could list a whole bunch of people, I'm sure, but to me, it's because, not just because of their musicianship, it's because I liked them. They're good people. They were wacky, both of them wacky. And messy and chaotic, but to me it's about wanting to just have more presence with someone that I liked.
Or if you sat down with them on the couch, it probably wouldn't even matter if you had instruments. You would just like to sit down and shoot the shit for a couple hours.
Pretty much. Exactly. Yeah. My times hanging out backstage with David Lindley, it's like, he was very generous with his time, and he liked to talk about things, I remember first time I opened for him, I came up the stairs, and when I walked in the room, he said, "I like you, man. You take chances." I was like, oh, I love this guy.
Nice. Well, we've gone through an hour plus here, and I think learned a lot about you and your thoughts about music and surviving and art and life. And I do appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing you on July 23rd with Matt and Luke. Matt has actually played here a few times and actually slept here a couple of times. So
yeah, that's what he said.
I feel like I know him a little better, but
nice.
Looking forward to the show, and I guess we'll see you on July 23rd.
Yeah, we'll be coming straight from the airport.
Okay, well, we'll be here waiting for you.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks, man. Take care.
All right. You bet.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.